On this episode of the Turnbuckle, we get an update on police receiving phone calls following MJF's promo on Dynamite. There's a possible reason for why the Good Brothers haven't been on WWE TV. And Malachi Black discusses future AEW goals. Folks, we're adding your favorite wrestling move into some wrestling news because it's time. In the aftermath of MJF's controversial promo on this week's AEW Dynamite, several reports suggested that Nassau Police Department, quote, were flooded with over 300 phone calls and had to investigate the veracity of the story narrated by the AEW World Champion. However, ESPN's Mark Raimondi subsequently shot down the reports, claiming that the fan outrage regarding the content of MJF's promo was greatly exaggerated. Not to break kayfabe, but I contacted the Nassau County PD, and reports that hundreds of people have called about the MJF promo from AEW don't seem to be true, Raimondi wrote on Twitter. The public information officer didn't know what I was talking about and said that such calls would go to his office. In a follow-up tweet, Raimondi noted that several people confirmed to him that there was truth to the original story, but the idea that hundreds of fans were flooding cops with phone calls was not true. Later on Thursday, Brian Alvarez reported that the police did receive phone calls following MJF's promo. I don't know if it was actually over 300 calls, but absolutely 100% they got a bunch of phone calls, Alvarez said on the latest Wrestling Observer Live. That's not a joke. A bunch of fans legitimately called the Nassau Police Department to report MJF. Alvarez added that 80% of MJF's promo was true, and the wrestler did get into a, quote, serious car accident with his football buddies while in junior high. He changed the end, Alvarez said on MJF's story. He wanted to make people think he was a horrible person by claiming he switched seats with his girlfriend following the crash. It wasn't a story he made up. Almost 80% of it is true, but 20% is fake. He did spin out with his football buddies and smash into a tree. It was a serious car accident. So, I'm glad, okay. He said 80% of it was true. So I'm assuming the part where it was rainy and, they skidded and ran into the tree, I'm assuming that part was true. I'm going to go ahead and safely, just pointing that out, I'm going to safely assume that the part where he switched the, his lady friend out of the seat, I don't know. Listen, I'm not an officer of the law. I don't know if there's any legality, illegality. I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you if that's illegal or not. I don't know. I know it was a really scummy thing to do, and nobody really like it. And I like that we really kind of took a little dip back into the 80s a little bit. Like, a lot of people called the police department, were like, hey, he did this thing. Good to know that MJF isn't actually a deeply horrible person, and it's a good thing that, the only thing that really came out of it was just, a prank. I guess that's the best way to put it. It was just a prank. That's all it was. Next, we're going to talk about a possible reason for the Good Brothers' absence from TV. Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows have not appeared on Raw since their loss to Damian Priest and Finn Balor on January 9th. While their absence could be related to fellow OC stablemate AJ Styles being on the shelf with an ankle injury, it was recently revealed by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful that the Good Brothers have a unique clause in their WWE contracts that allows them not to attend WWE shows if they're not being utilized in storylines or matches. People were asking why the Good Brothers were not at the Royal Rumble or at Raw, Sapp said during his appearance on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast. In their new deals, they said, if you're not going to use us, we don't want to be there. Just don't send us there. With all due respect, we will do our jobs, but we don't want to be there if we're not being used. WWE said, okay. Sapp added that Anderson and Gallows are both under 5-year WWE contracts that will keep them with the company through late 2027. It's worth noting that the Good Brothers have been wrestling regularly at WWE live events and even had a match against the Creed brothers at the recent WWE main event taping. However, they have been kept promptly off TV for a month, to the point where they have not appeared in segments with Meech and Mia Yim, the other member of the OC stable on the Red brand. Meanwhile, Styles has been off of all WWE programming since suffering an ankle injury in the last week of December. It's likely WWE is waiting for the Phenomenal One to return to in-ring action before reintroducing Anderson and Gallows to storylines. The OC essentially lost their rivalry to the Judgment Day following 2 huge losses in November. Judgment Day's members have since moved on to other storylines. So that's a very unique clause to have in their contract. I mean, I don't know how many people really have that contract stipulation. or not, I would argue that that's a pretty handy thing to have. The real situation is we have to wait for AJ Styles, and when I say AJ Styles is better, that pretty much gets the wheels going for everything else, So I mean, really, it's not even up to Gallows and Anderson. So really, all we have to do is just wait for AJ Styles to come back. So here's hoping he makes a speedy recovery. Finally, we're going to be talking about Malachi Black and how he discusses his future AEW goals. Upon their return to AEW in November, House of Black quickly targeted two other prominent stables in the company, Best Friends and The Factory. Since their resurgence, the trio of Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews tackled their competition with ease, with Julia Hart typically at ringside as well. The three racked up a mini winning streak before Matthews temporarily broke off for a shot at the TNT Championship. Meanwhile, the duo of Black and King hailed themselves as the Kings of the Black Throne and continued their run of dominance. While speaking with Hard Lore, Black explained the next goals for the group. It would make more sense for us to chase the trios titles, he said. I feel like it's time for us to do something that turns more heads than just being the House of Black and give people an extra reason to bite down on what it is we present to the world. Black revealed his hopes to ignite a tag team run alongside King and a possible singles push for himself, while he also proposed the idea of a match against King as well. The reason why is because best friends make better enemies. I think that him and me can bring something out of each other that is animalistic. We can pull back the curtain on a friendship level, actually move the current in front of a friendship level, and just go, alright, we're going to fight, and we're going to fight and not have any hatred towards each other. Black named a few more competitors he'd want to tango with in a singles competition or a multi-match scenario, which includes the likes of Chris Jericho, The Elite, Aussie Open, Will Ospreay, and FTR. I'm glad that the House of Black are really in like two feuds right now. I'm glad that they started up like fighting like two people instead of just going after like one specific team, and I'm glad that this opens the door for a bunch of different like avenues and stuff like that for the storyline and the feuds and everything like that, and I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. I'm really looking forward to the goals that Malachi has set out. So I really think that the trios titles definitely belong to the House of Black. I'm very excited to just even think about that match, let alone just like see it. So hopefully in the near future we're gonna get that eventually. Hopefully we're gonna have that championship, hopefully at like a pay-per-view or something like that. And ultimately, I feel like the best decision would be for the House of Black to win. I don't necessarily know if that is potentially going to happen. There's a lot of different things up in the air right now. I mean, the hope is that this is building towards that match. The hope is that this is building towards a future championship match with the Elite. I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen, but the odds are looking good in that being the case. And I mean, really, the issue is like, even if we do get to that match, what are the odds of the House of Black even taking home the gold? You know what I mean? Like, we're just gonna have to like wait and see like how everything like falls into place. You know what I mean? Like right now, we've just got like the feud is like pretty much just starting. I know it's like we're still like fresh into it. I know we're not like that far in. So I mean, at the end of the day, we're just gonna have to like wait and see what exactly happens, I guess, after this feud runs its course, and when exactly the goals that Malachi set out is actually going to start shifting into place, and when we're actually going to see Malachi and Brody King go against each other. He said not on a hatred level, so it's not going to be like a feud. I guess it's going to be some sort of like sparring match, I guess, like how New Day do and stuff like that. So I guess we're just going to have to like wait and see how that unfolds. So honestly, only time will tell what exactly happens first and like how it starts playing out. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. But hopefully everyone's excited as I am. What do we talk about? So nobody actually called the police. MJF is fine. He's not actually a terrible person. Also, the end bit of that story actually isn't true. Thank goodness. He was just doing it for a fun. It wasn't funny, was it though? So. And also, the phone calls. The phone calls were funny. Apparently, that actually ended up being a prank. The Good Brothers are not on TV, and apparently they have like a little sneaky clause in the contract that pretty much allows that to happen. So, well, no, wow, I can't believe I worded it like that. The Good Brothers have a clause in their contract that pretty much allows them to go do other things if they're not being featured prominently on WWE TV. That's pretty much what's going on. And I assume that was a universal thing, and it's not, and it's very surprising. But you know what? I'm looking forward to the future goals that Malachi Black has set out. I know that I keep saying that, but like, he's really, I think that it is a really good idea for them to go towards the trios titles, and like I said, I don't necessarily know when exactly that's going to start happening, but I assume it's going to take place once this whole like factory and best friends feud has, been finished and everything. And I assume after that's all said and done, the House of Black are going to be the ones who come out on top, and that's potentially, going to open the door for them to be like, hey, we're coming after the titles, and I want them to win. Hopefully they do. I don't necessarily know if it's going to happen. That really depends on how long Tony Khan wants the Elite to hold the titles, but man, if you're going to give it to anybody, the House of Black definitely deserve it. Folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Hopefully everybody has a wonderful tonight and a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, big hugs all around.